Chapter 5: Steam, Shadows, and a Sample of Corruption. The fog over Illyria had thickened into a living shroud, curling through the copper spires and twisting around the steel girders like grasping fingers. Rumi crouched atop the service roof, cloaked drawn tight, whisper perched lightly on her wrist, vibrating with a mixture of anticipation and alarm. "Are you absolutely certain you want to poke the mayor's heart tonight?" Whisper asked, metallic voice tinged with sarcasm. "I mean, technically he's alive. Technically." Rumi ignored him, scanning the courtyard below. Steam vents hissed like miniature dragons, and brass conduits twisted along the walls, feeding power into every locked chamber of the mansion. The windows glowed faintly with lamplight, but she knew from her observations that the staff and mechanical servants were alert and precise, programmed to notice even the faintest irregularity. "Technically alive is exactly why we do this carefully," she muttered. "One wrong move and Claverley wins, or the mayor dies. Neither option is acceptable." Whisper's metallic hum lowered to a contemplative vibration. "Fine, but if I end up being thrown into another steam vent again, I'm blaming you." She slipped down the service roof, using a series of hidden scaffolds and narrow beams to cross into a small side balcony. The corridor beyond was empty, except for the faint hiss of pipes and the occasional clink of a gear-driven servant adjusting itself. Her hand slid into her satchel, fingers brushing the tools she would need: a set of insulated tongs, a vial of dimming mist to cloak her presence, and a small needle forged from obsidian steel, perfect for delicately lifting samples without triggering alarms. Inside the corridor, she paused. From beneath the floorboards came a subtle vibration, almost like a heartbeat, but faster, irregular. Whisper leaned forward, his etched surface catching the dim light. "That's it," he said softly. "The heart conduit. It hums through the floor, threading itself into the mansion's lifeblood. Touch it wrong, and you're not stealing. It's theft by termination." Rumi crouched, pressing a gloved hand to the floor. Faint blue currents pulsed beneath, tracing the path of energy between the mayor's mechanical heart and the Claverley serum monitors. "Okay," she whispered. "Step 1, get a sample. Step 2, figure out how it's corrupting him. Step 3, well, let's not die." Whisper vibrated sharply, a metallic laugh. "Step 1, avoid dying. Step 2, don't get caught. Step 3, figure out how to undo mind control via mechanical heart serum. Step 4, dramatic flair. Step 5, optional philosophical musings on morality." Rumi edged down the corridor, avoiding the floor panels that hummed more strongly, the telltale warning of sensors. She slipped into a small service hatch she had discovered during her reconnaissance. It led to a narrow maintenance shaft filled with hissing steam pipes, copper conduits, and the occasional mechanical rat scuttling along the cables. "Fun times," Whisper muttered. "Who builds a mansion like this? Half castle, half nightmare of wires and boiling water." "Someone who likes their immortality contracts complicated," Rumi replied, keeping her steps light on the metal grates. The shaft led to the heart chamber, hidden beneath a raised floor panel. Rumi peered down through a small grated window. The mayor sat at his desk, hands hovering over the pulsating vial that connected to his mechanical heart. The soft blue glow reflected in his eyes, which now seemed more distant than warm. There was a flicker of unease in his gaze, the faintest hesitation in the way he moved, but he was unaware of her presence. "Step 1, Whisper muttered, acquire the shiny bad influence. It glows. It is the problem. Go." Rumi extended the insulinate tongs, carefully maneuvering them through a small vent pipe, reaching for the outer casing of the serum chamber. With delicate precision, she extracted a single, faintly glowing droplet into a vial. It pulsed, almost alive, and a chill ran down her spine. "Got it," she whispered, retreating. But the heart reacted immediately. A soft hiss echoed through the pipes, and the blue glow flickered like a candle in the wind. The mayor flinched, murmuring, "Must resist." His voice carried a subtle strain, like iron bending under pressure. The corruption was tugging at him, attempting to align his thoughts with Claverley's design. "Yup," Whisper whispered, a faint buzz of alarm. "It notices, and it's not pleased." Classic. Rumi moved backwards through the maintenance shaft, keeping the vial secure, while Whisper projected a faint illusion around her, a shimmering blur of shadows that masked her movements from the sensors. At the end of the shaft, she paused in a small service room to examine the sample. The serum glowed faintly, swirling like smoke trapped in glass. Whisper hummed nervously. "You realize," he said, "this is worse than we thought. This isn't just immortality. This is rewriting the mayor's mind one heartbeat at a time." Rumi nodded. "Exactly. And if we're not careful, he won't even know he's being corrupted until it's too late, which is why we need evidence and a plan." Whisper rolled over the edge of her palm, spinning like a tiny compass. "Ah, yes, the plan. So simple. Step 1, avoid dying. Step 2, don't get caught. Step 3, figure out how to undo mind control via mechanical heart serum. Step 4, dramatic flair. Step 5, optional philosophical musings on morality." Rumi smiled faintly, pocketing the vial. "We'll add another step," she murmured. "Step 6, save the mayor without killing him." Outside, the fog thickened, curling like a living cloak around the mansion. Steam hissed and copper groaned as if the building itself whispered warnings. Rumi crept along the shadows, every sense alert, whispering to Whisper in quiet commentary about the traps she avoided and the conduit she traced. "Next," she said, as they reached the roofline, "we figure out how deep this corruption goes and who else Claverley has touched while the mayor sleeps under their influence." Whisper hummed low. "Delightful. Nothing like a slow-motion moral disaster with steam, brass, and a nearly immortal bureaucrat. Should we add explosions next, or just save the city quietly?" Rumi laughed softly. "Not tonight. Tonight we observe. Tomorrow we act." The mansion loomed behind them, copper spires glinting faintly in the moonlight. Inside, a good man was slowly being twisted by promises of longevity, his heart tethered to a power he did not fully understand. Outside, a thief and her talking coin planned their next move, threading the shadows with careful intent. And somewhere in the distant offices of Claverley, papers shifted of their own accord, as if aware that Illyria's smallest heartbeat might just resist the bureaucracy threatening to claim it. Chapter 6. Tinkering with the Tether. The moonlight slanted through the copper lattices of the mayor's mansion, reflecting off the steam vents and casting long, twisting shadows across the brickwork. Rumi, crouched in the maintenance shaft, her gloves slick with condensation, the vial of heart serum resting carefully in a velvet-lined pocket of her satchel. Whisper hummed faintly, the soft vibration betraying his unease. "You realize," he said, his metallic voice rising in pitch, "this is not a simple grab-and-run heist. We're essentially fiddling with a man's soul. One misstep, and poof, no mayor. Or worse, a puppet." Rumi glanced at him, not unamused. "That's why I'm testing first. I'm not going in blind. We need to know what we're dealing with."
Below, the hum of the mechanical heart pulsed through the mansion like the slow thrum of an engine. Copper conduits coiled along the floor, feeding energy between the mayor's organic heart cavity and the intricate machinery Cleverly had installed. It was beautiful in a nightmarish way. Polished brass plates engraved with protective runes, tubes carrying liquid silver that glittered like quicksilver, and a network of miniature gears whirring endlessly. Rumi extracted a small inspection lens from her satchel, affixing it to the vent pipe that allowed her a direct view. She tapped the vial lightly, observing how a droplet of the serum interacted with the pulse of the mechanical heart. Immediately, faint crimson veins of influence stretched from the conduit to the mayor's chest. The heart wasn't just pumping, it was tethering his mind, slowly threading his thoughts toward Cleverly's will. Whisper vibrated sharply, clearly unsettled. "Yup, told you. Slowly, subtly, and terribly polite about it. This isn't magic's usual subtle persuasion. It's bureaucracy in liquid form." Rumi nodded, murmuring under her breath, "We need to understand the tether. Not destroy it, not alert it, just counteract for now." She retrieved a pair of insulated tongs and a thin obsidian needle, threading them carefully along the conduit. Every step had to be silent, measured, precise. One slip and alarms would scream across the mansion, rousing mechanical guards and the mayor himself. "First, we test a minor interference," Rumi whispered. She applied the needle to a junction where two thin conduits carried the serum into the heart casing. The effect was subtle. A faint pulse of blue light dimmed, the heart's hum softened, and the mayor's hands relaxed slightly on the desk. Whisper purred, well, as much as a coin could purr. A little tweak and the mayor breathes easier. He doesn't even know we're meddling. That's impressive and terrifying." Rumi took a deep breath, her fingers steady despite the chill in the shaft. "We need baseline observations. Let's see if the corruption manifests elsewhere." She adjusted her lens and focused on the mayor's ledger, a personal journal kept open on the desk. His handwriting, normally meticulous and controlled, now wavered. Subtle, erratic loops, unusually large letters, traces of obsessive repetition. Cleverly's influence was insidious, twisting his mind toward patterns of risk, dominance, and self-preservation, traits not inherent to the man she had observed during daytime council visits. "See?" Whisper's tone sharpened. "It's creeping in, gentle at first, then it spreads like rust in copper pipes, and here we are, trying not to electrocute him accidentally." Rumi carefully extracted a few threads of silver conduit, weaving the serum's flow to bypass the minor influences. She marked the section with a faint, invisible chalk rune, a subtle stabilizer. The effect was immediate but slight. The mayor's handwriting steadied, his gaze softened. A whisper of relief, almost imperceptible, crossed his face. "You're doing good work," Whisper admitted, his voice lower, vibrating with rare approval. "And terrifyingly clever. You're basically teaching bureaucracy to back off." Rumi allowed herself a faint smile, but didn't relax. "This is just the start. The mayor isn't aware yet, but the longer the tether persists, the stronger Cleverly's influence grows. If we don't find the core source, the contract he signed, he's going to spiral completely." Her mind replayed the intercepted documents she had glimpsed during her initial reconnaissance. A contract hidden deep within Cleverly's vaults, promising extended life in exchange for the heart and obedience. Simple enough to read in print, but once the magic and mechanics intertwined, it became a living document, pulsing through every interaction, influencing decisions, whispering in dreams. "And there's the rub," Whisper said. "Not just a contract, a living contract, and you want to untangle it without anyone noticing." Rumi's eyes narrowed. "Exactly, and we need a plan to access the signed document without alerting Cleverly's wards. Once we have it, we can sever the tether without killing the mayor or destroying the heart, but it won't be easy. The wards adapt, the heart responds to emotional state. If he senses fear or suspicion, the corruption intensifies." A soft clang echoed from the mansion below, snapping Rumi's attention. She froze, tensing as the mayor muttered something intelligible, his hand briefly twitching toward the glowing vial. The mechanical servants, sleek and copper-hued, patrolled nearby, their gears clicking rhythmically. "Relax," Whisper said. "He hasn't noticed you yet, but maybe stop petting the conduits like they're kittens. I think they're judging you." Rumi smirked faintly and retreated back along the shaft, heart pounding. "We need surveillance. Observation first, action second, and we need to track the corruption's growth." Outside, fog rolled over the mansion like a restless sea. Steam hissed and copper groaned. A single brass gargoyle blinked mechanically in her direction, half sentinel, half decoration, but Rumi ignored it. Her mind was already racing ahead, planning how to infiltrate Claverley's document vault, obtain the contract, and finally disentangle the mayor from the creeping corruption. And somewhere deep within the mansion, the mayor's mechanical heart pulsed with unnatural rhythm, each beat another stitch in Claverley's subtle web. Rumi whispered to Whisper, "Tomorrow, we find the core. Tonight, we watch, and pray he doesn't spiral completely before we get there." Whisper twirled gently in her hand. The glamorous life of a thief, watching the clock, hugging conduits, and hoping the good guy doesn't become a villain in a steam-powered horror show. Can't wait for the sequel. Rumi chuckled softly, adjusting her cloak. "Me neither, old friend, me neither."
Chapter 7. The Vault Under Glass. Rumi had broken into places that were supposed to be unbreakable, bishops' safes that hummed prayer lists, guild treasuries whose locks read your pulse and refused to open for thieves with sinful hearts. Claverley's vault, she decided, as she crouched beneath the bank of offices that housed the company's brass sigil, was the most politely terrifying of them all. It was polite because it addressed you by name when you stepped into the antechamber, terrifying because it expected the answer. The alley leading to the vault smelled of oil and old paper. A glass dome rose above the doorway, veins of copper running like arteries beneath the surface. Inside it, documents fluttered like captive moths, contracts, seals, amendments, each one monitored by tiny watchful devices that blinked slow and indifferent. Claverley's offices above pretended to be a place of commerce and policy. Below, the vault was a church where bureaucracy worshipped itself. Whisper twitched on her wrist, catching the little reflected lamps along the dome. "If I had a mouth, I swear at that building. It's far too smug." Rumi eased a grappling little tool from her satchel, a sliver of obsidian shaped like a pick, a lens, a few threaded spikes. Nothing bulky. Claverley's wards punished weight with curious efficiency. She found a grate that led down into the service tunnels, a forgotten maintenance access smeared with pigeon guano and the faint dust of old ink. The grate complained politely as she slid it back. Even the sounds in this place had signatures stamped on them. The service tunnel was warm, ductwork dripping condensation in slow musical ticks. Pipes thud with the city's heartbeat far above, dull and distant. She crawled, letting whisper-thin coils of shadow cloak her, and felt for the subtle signs that told a seasoned thief where a place was not merely locked, but owned. There were faint sigils in the mortar, etched by those who maintained the vault, telling any watchful thing, owner present, intrusion detected, call the herald. Rumi avoided the sigils by running along the pipe shadows, careful not to step where the mortar glowed faintly. She surfaced through a maintenance hatch into an antechamber meant for staff, polite chairs, pleasantly idle attendants whose smiles were slightly too polished. Two clerks bent over a ledger. One looked up, then back down again, as though remembering someone else's glance. Their eyes were pale, almost glassy. "They've already recruited the help," noted with a small metallic rasp. "Look at their eyes. Damp for compliance, bright for approval, no teeth in the smiles." Rumi's glove slid across the desk's lip. She would need a distraction.
The clerk's registers chimed polite numbers when transactions passed. She fed one a coin, and the register hiccuped as if startled. The clerk looked, long enough for Rumi to slip past the side door and into a corridor of blue light. The corridor led to a spherical chamber rimmed with glass, Cleverly's vault under glass. The floor was a mosaic of small mirrored tiles. Each tile reflected not only the body walking over it, but cataloged it, listing names and debts in letters that skimmed across the surface like fish. The center of the room held a vault whose door was a lattice of brass gears and glass, and inside, behind a second pane, hung tiers of scrolls and folded contracts, each tied with crimson thread and stamped with seals that moved when you looked away. Rumi crouched in a shadowed niche and watched. Guardians, little automatons more delicate than they should have been, patrolled the vault. They were made of thin metal ribs and paper-thin pages that flicked like wings. They did not look fierce. They looked administrative. One unfurled a feather like a ledger and tapped its page against the glass, as if checking compliance. She studied their rhythm. There was a pattern: 3 ticks, a long sweep, a pause. Between the pause and the next sweep, a thief might slide. Rumi had half a breath to move. She had practiced breathing like that once, in a monastery of watchmakers watching hands that never met. Her hand lifted. The obsidian sliver found the narrow gap where the glass met the brass lattice. It fit, a shard of night between 2 careful things. She slipped it in and breathed slow, feeling the tile-edged ledger underfoot whisper her name with contempt. The automaton's wings clicked in a slow choreography. Rumi moved. She had rehearsed the motion a dozen times in her head. Slide the glass, lift a single bundle, tuck it into a coat, close the glass, leave like a shadow. But the vault was a thing of moving laws. It read intention. The lattice shivered as if someone had breathed on its gears. The mirrored tiles pulsed. The letters skittered. Someone had toggled a sensor. Rumi's fingers tightened. She pried the glass wider. The edge bit her glove and sprayed a small bloom of sparks. Down in the mirrored tiles, her reflected name glowed red: Intruder. The automatons reeled into motion and their papery wings sliced the air like protest. She moved as she always moved, fast where speed mattered, careful where silence mattered more. The nearest automaton swiveled, pinprick sensors finding the dark. She flicked Whisper like a small coin missile. He spun, his sapphire eyes flashing, casting a bright arc of reflected light that distracted the automaton's sensors just long enough for Rumi's hand to dive into the vault, feeling the scrolls under her fingertips. The vault's guardians banged on the glass with their papery hands. The mirrored tiles flashed names and tolls, and overhead, somewhere, the copper tongue of the vault's alarm began its slow, bureaucratic bellow. She slipped back, half turned to close the pane, and there, through the second pane, she saw the mayor's name etched along the contract. Below it, in handwriting she recognized from the mayor's ledger, a second signature glimmered faintly. In angular, precise script, Cleverly had scrawled its own requirement. Rumi felt the air catch. The contract was not a simple trade of flesh for brass. Between the margins, in the fine print that pulsed like a living thing, there was a clause that she had not expected. Integration clause. It read, plain as a toll booth's demand, that the heart would not simply replace beat by beat, but it would gradually subsume the bearer's choices, policy by policy, until the mayor's will was indistinguishable from the corporation's. The line beneath it worried her more. It mentioned a service key, a small artifact that linked the human conduit to Cleverly's network. Whoever possessed that key could modulate the integration, soften it, accelerate it, or reverse it. Service key, breathed Whisper, his voice thin in the glass chamber. Ooh, that explains the papers that read his pulse. Someone's got the key. Whoever holds it holds the mayor's mind. Rumi's hand got cold against the parchment. She did not have the key. Whoever did would be able to tether the mayor, and through him, the whole city to Cleverly's appetite. The alarms grew louder.
The vault's mirrored tiles began to run names in a frantic scroll. Paper automatons multiplied, their wings scraping for purchase. The clerks above would notice soon. Guards would flood the corridors. She had the contract, proof that Cleverly's reach was not rumor, but doctrine. And with proof came power to act. Power and panic. Rumi slid the glass back into place with the practiced snap and back towards the service hatch. Her breath hitched as a guardian swung low, a papery shroud brushing the sleeve of her coat. Paper fibers snagged on the hems of her cloak, as if the building itself attempted to keep her. She pulled free, a muted curse slipping from her lips. She ducked into the maintenance tunnel as the vault's alarm bloomed into full voice. At the grate, as she pushed the panel aside, a gloved hand met hers from within the dark. For a heartbeat, she thought she was caught. Then the hand released a small, folded thing into her palm, a scrap of paper soaked with oil, a cryptic symbol scrawled in a hurried hand. The fingers were quick and then gone, retreating into the tunnel with the silent discipline of someone who moved through the underbody of the city like a shadow. Rumi opened the scrap as she crawled back toward the alley. The symbol looked like a cog with a thread running through its center. Below it, a single word in neat print. Weaver. Weaver, the machine wright who binds hearts to hands. I've heard that name in old forges. Keeper of threads and something worse. If this is a clue, then Cleverly is not merely a company, it's an industry of living contracts. Rumi folded the contract tight against her chest and tasted iron in her mouth. She had the proof she needed, but the vault had given her more than ink and claws. Someone in the tunnels had left a sign, a warning, or a plea. The weavers worked in the seams of the city, threading mechanism into memory and memory into rule. Rumi drew her hood up. We find the weaver, she said softly. We find the key. We undo whatever they've done. Whisper clicked once as if in agreement, his tone both serious and small. And then, he said, we see if mercy can be measured in cogs. Above them, the vault's glass dome blinked a slow, patient eye, watching a world that still believed contracts were only paper. Rumi walked into the fog with the mayor's future heavy against her chest, and the sound of the city's heartbeat changing ever so slightly behind her.